there's some self-help books out there that you probably haven't read as an author and small business owner that you probably should. Here's 5 that I've read in the last, 5 years that I wish I had read a lot sooner in my life. Let's check it. Welcome back, everybody. So again, my name is Jenna O'Malley. I'm your soul writer. Welcome back. We are talking today about 5 books that I wish I had read way sooner as an adult who loves writing. Now, mind you, writing has always been a part of my life since I was teenager. I literally have spent most of my adult life teaching children and adults, not just like academic writing, technical writing, business writing, but largely creative writing. And to the point that every school I've worked for long term and several schools outside of, I wrote the curriculum and development for their creative writing programs, and they're still using it. So anywho, with that being the case, there's 5 books I really wish I would have read way sooner, not just to help me operate my classroom and connect with my students more, but now more so as a business owner, to connect with my clients more, and also to help myself get around my own blockages, writing, life, whatever may have you. First up, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success by Dr. Carol S. Dweck. I have known of Dr. Dweck's work since I began teaching. Growth mindset became a big thing right around the beginning of TED Talk, so that was the beginning of my teacher career, circa about 10-15 years ago. And even if you Google search growth mindset, you will find talks by Dr. Dweck on this topic and their research. So a lot of the studies for growth mindset do look at school settings. For example, one of the original studies focused solely on why do students in inner city New York schools perform so poorly on certain tests. I'm a child from inner city Baltimore. I'm like, I see this. I taught this in rural West Virginia just as much, right? And I have taught some kids from some big cities. In a virtual aspect, some of my students have lived in Detroit, Michigan, Tokyo, Japan, and Rio de Janeiro. I kid you not. I've had kids in all those places around the world, and they all kind of have certain things in common when it comes to that big city mindset. You are either striving to be the top, or you feel the weight to be pushed to the bottom. And it doesn't go away. Now, in the studies that Carol Dweck and her team did, they said, what is the commonality to take these kids in these high pressure, usually socioeconomically perverse and stricken neighborhoods filled with crime and things that, will unalive these kids solely for waking up in the morning and catching the bus to go to school that day. How do the ones that get out and survive and thrive manage to do so? What do they have in common? It's not who's helping them at home. It's not necessarily even the teachers they have. It's not necessarily where they came from. It's their, what they call grit, their choice to deal with it, and to only let what sucks now be temporary. That's kind of growth mindset. I was a child of the 90s, and we hardly ever talked about that kind of stuff in school growing up. Now, as a teacher, that is one thing we talked about consistently. Even prior to, spring break 2020 being what it was, my students and I would have discussions about characters being resilient and about, in a nonfiction sense, why do you think this person made this decision to react this way? And it all came back to that human condition. We didn't do that so much when I was in school in the 90s. It's taxing to have those conversations, but even more so, I think it's more taxing to avoid them and to walk around the elephant in the room. So if you have not read that book or audiobooked it, I think you should. Number 2, Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear by Elizabeth Gilbert. Now, a lot of you know this name. Elizabeth Gilbert has been in and out of public media for a very, very long time for other reasons, other creations, but normally this book gets overlooked, or people whom have read it are like, yeah, I read it so long ago, I forgot about it. I read it a couple years ago and then reread it recently this summer, and I'm like, I needed this reminder. It goes into really driving you to face curiosity from a sandbox point of view. With this book, I do agree with a lot of reviews. When you read it, you have to kind of sit next to your younger self who was told, you're not allowed to do the thing because it won't make you earn any money. You have to kind of sit down and give them a hug. I grew up in an era where my parents' mindsets were females should be seen, not heard, preferably not seen, unless they're cleaning up after something or taking care of the kids. So, yeah, you can imagine for those of us women who have that voice in our back pocket, this book's very empowering. And I would even venture to say, if you are a gentleman, regardless of your persuasions of life, if you came from a home where broken could have been easily fixed in a number of ways that involved separating. My family was that way. My parents threatened to get a divorce multiple times, and now I wonder if that would have been the better option in retrospect. So, this book's a big one. If you feel like you need, I wouldn't even say a mom to hug you, but a grandmom to sit down and hug you, that's without, you know Grandmother Willow from Pocahontas? Do you know the grandmom from Garfield? Do you know Sophia Petrillo? It's like getting a hug from her. It's gonna hurt. But it's gonna wrap you in the biggest, warmest, marinara, warm bread love cuddle that you could ever want. If you need that, pick up that book. I know it's an audiobook and it's a good listen. Number 3, Stephen Pressfield, The War of Art. I've actually taught this book to college creative writing students. It would be the textbook of my college creative writing classes. And we would only read a couple chapters from it. Totally epic to read. And a lot of people know The Art of War, much older text, much different connotation. Read the two side by side and you're going to see a lot of two sides of a different coin in all the right ways. Many of you have heard me say that I am a child who grew up during save the arts for the art's sake kind of movements, and I'm still as a person going, we see where the fallout of that happened. Thank you very much. Kill imagination. Try it. Ain't gonna happen because the warriors are here. Anywho, this is definitely a good warriors are here expression book. It kind of teaches you to not care about the what ifs while acknowledging they exist. And each section and chapter is, especially if you listen to the audiobook of this, are very soundbite-ish. So if you're the kind of person who is like, I have a 20-minute commute and then I gotta hop on the train for 20 minutes and then I have a 5-minute walk, you can see where this kind of listen to would be good for that. And it definitely has you wanting to look at the obstacles in your life and say, you exist. I'm going to find a way to go through the mountain, around the mountain, under the mountain, over the mountain, but it's not going to be a mountain that blocks me. Let's go, Gimli. I know you need a box. Let's get it for you. Also, Atomic Habits by James Clear. I have seen posters of quotes from Atomic Habits out of context in classrooms for ages. It's refreshing to read them in context. A lot of you probably will witness this phenomenon when you go through this book especially, and you probably will not agree with everything inside. But I like that it made me think about what my good habits are that are bad for me. Is it time to take off the training wheels from the bike? Are you really good enough at bowling to put down the bumper pads now? Can we switch our shoes from slip-ons to lace-ups or Velcros? Do you get what I mean? Atomic Habits made me stop and look at the habits that I was keeping around that served past me that may be restricting now me. Pair this with Carol Dweck's book mentioned previously. Pow! Yeah, no wonder my life has changed over the last couple of years when I realized, wait a minute. Talk about being right and staring you in the face, Eric Stewart. I see you back there, Kaiba, with that same quote from your voice actor. Don't look at me like that. Anyway, the last book I'm going to suggest is You Are a Writer, So Start Acting Like It by Jeff. And this book, I have been consuming the writer's life, but not been in the sandbox at all, like entirely. This is one of those books that made me realize I really am in the same ocean as so many people, but probably hanging out in the wrong lighthouse. So many times. So it's straightforward, it's encouraging, but specifically it's tailored toward indie authors. A lot of the other books that I've mentioned have other intended audiences that indie authors could find benefit from. This book, I think, is kind of like creed to us and can definitely be a super strong call to action for you to give yourself permission to fight a little thing I have long called page fright. Actors face stage fright. We writers and authors can't get the actor to have stage fright and do the performance until we overcome our page fright. That blank page is so scary because you know when you fill up that page and it's done, that means you got to edit. And when you're done filling up the page with your edits and corrections, you know that means you got to publish, and then it's in somebody else's hands. So if I just never finish writing it, then I don't need to face my other fears. I can just stop at this bridge. No. Go hang out with Jeff and he'll tell you why you should give your permission to cross those bridges. Because, trust me, having lived the last 2 years at 2 different places where bridge was in the address, life is going to give you a choice. Trolls or not, what bridges are you crossing? It might only be for a season. You can bet they're going to come back around again symbolically later on. So pick your lighthouse, pick your why. Know what roads and bridges you need to travel. Roads are going to be the journey itself. Bridges are going to be the decisions and skills that you need to face and gain and deal with along the way. This is your roadmap. If I didn't mention a book that you thought I might, and you think I should, comment section below. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm opening up a class for Soul Bard Academy where we're going to talk about a lot of this stuff and deep dive into a lot of these kinds of things and face them together to get you to finish a project in about 6 months. So join us. Take care of yourself. Until I see you again, remember your voice has always been worth it. Dang it.